Good morning and welcome to Michael and Luca's Excellent Adventure. I'm very happy to be here. We are going to discuss a lot of interesting topics today. Our friend Andrew can't be here today, but we will be thinking about him today. So, a lot has happened in the sports world this past week. A lot of great March Madness games that is like the center of the sports world right now. Um, the biggest game this weekend was UConn versus Duke. I watched the last couple of minutes of that game, and it was one of the most incredible endings I've ever seen, not just in a March Madness game, but in a basketball game in general. Dan Hurley's UConn Huskies did not give up. They fought until the end, and they really, really showed. And that was an example of how when not just in basketball, but in any sporting event, it's not over until it's over. And on Sunday, um, it's Duke was winning. Duke, I believe, was up by like 19 at half, like 44-29 at half. They were up by a big score at halftime. And I was working on an assignment, and I checked the score, and I'm like, okay, I have a feeling that Duke was going to win. And then in the second half, UConn just came out like a completely different team, came out with a lot of enthusiasm, so much heart, went after every ball on the floor, shot the ball so well from three, grabbed so many rebounds, and played with so much heart and so much passion. And ever since UConn won at the buzzer on Sunday, all I've seen on Instagram and when on Instagram is that play that the kid from UConn hit the shot, and that will go down as one of the clutchest shots in the history of basketball. That was an incredible shot, and it just was a testament to how tough UConn was. And Duke was up by like a score that with like a minute to go, and they were up by a score that they should have won the game, and they tied it. UConn made it 72-70 with about 10 seconds to go, and Duke inbounded the ball, and the Duke player gets into the middle of the court, and then he tries to make a pass down the court, but the UConn player deflects the pass, and then Karaban, UConn's best player, gets the pass, and he could have shot the ball, but instead he made a great pass to Mullins, and he hit the three, and that was an incredible shot, and that was a long shot. And then when it went up, Dan Hurley and his crew went nut, and his staff was so excited. And one of the assistant coaches at UConn is Bill Murray's son. Bill Murray, the actor, his son is an assistant coach there, and Bill Murray was at the game on Sunday. They showed him, and I'm sure at the Final Four this Saturday in Indianapolis, Bill Murray will be there. But it just goes to show that UConn never gave up. They played with so much toughness and so much heart. They wanted it more, and it really is not over until it's over. What did you think of that shot, Luca?
Yeah, no, I agree with what you said. I certainly think that that was an amazing shot, and that it really just shows that UConn played with a lot of heart and they stayed in there and they never gave up or anything like that, and that will go down as definitely as one of the clutchest shots in history. Just everything about it was just amazing.
And UConn, this is their third trip to the Final Four in the past 4 years, and they're looking to win their third championship in the past 4 seasons. Dan Hurley has really created a culture, a winning culture, and a really great environment to play at UConn. And he really, really gets enthusiastic about the game. He really gets into it in the game, and he's a guy who really, really takes the game of basketball very seriously. He has an older brother named Bobby Hurley, who was a point guard at Duke, and he was one of the best point guards to ever play the game of basketball in college. He played at Duke with Christian Laettner, and he played for Coach K, Grant Hill, and he was an incredible player. And Dan Hurley played at Seton Hall, and Dan was a good player in college, but he wasn't as good as his brother Bobby. So Dan Hurley's entire life, everybody kept saying to him, you're not your brother Bobby. You're not Bobby. You're the other Hurley. You're just a Hurley. And that probably bothered Dan, but now people aren't saying that because Bobby might have been Dan Hurley's older brother. Bobby might have been a better player, but I'll tell you this: Dan is definitely the better coach, and and there's also an ESPN documentary called "The Other Hurley," which I watched last semester, and it's an ESPN documentary about how Bobby and Dan grew up and how basketball was their whole life, and actually, as a matter of fact, Bobby Hurley and Dan Hurley, they coached together in high school, and I watch like sometimes for the UConn practices, they videotape and they film the practices, and I'm able to see the way Dan Hurley coaches at practice. Same thing with St. John's coach Rick Pitino, and the way Dan Hurley coaches at practice is intense. He would be a great guy to coach for, but you have to know what you're getting into when you play for Dan Hurley. You have to say to yourself, there's no nonsense and it's all business. And if you're not willing to go in and give it your all, and if you're not willing to try, if you don't give it your all and you don't try your 100% best, and if you're not willing to accept when you make a mistake, and if you're not going to go there and play your heart out all the time when you're on the court, you're in for a tough way if you don't have that mindset. And they won 2 national championships when I was a junior and senior in high school, and then like a couple of months later they were back at it practicing in the summer, and Dan Hurley was so intense at practice, and at practice, like if you don't give it your 100%, he makes you run up and down on the bleachers, and he's like, everybody stares, and he's like, when you have a championship mentality, we have guys that ran everywhere. All our players run everywhere, and he really expects a lot out of you. And when you win a championship with different players, that's a sign that you're a great coach. And when you bring a team to a Final Four with different players, that's a sign that you're a great coach. Now, Dan Hurley's mindset, do you think that's a good mindset, Luca?
Yes, I certainly do. I think that is very much a great mindset to have, and you should have a coach that's passionate about the game and wants to win and cares about his players. And yeah, no, that's definitely a great mindset.
And he is a tough coach, and he's not someone I'd want to mess with. But he definitely seems like he likes his players a lot, and he definitely is a character on the court. He really gets into it with the refs, and he doesn't play games. And Dan Hurley's father is very supportive. He goes to all the games, and this season, last season, UConn wasn't as good as they were the year or two before when they won the championship. But this season, a lot of people expected them to go far in the tournament, but probably not a lot of people expected them to go back to the Final Four. And I believe the kid that hit the game-winning shot on Sunday, I think he's from Indiana, and Dan Hurley, I think, said to him before the season started, we're going to get you back to your hometown. And you're not just going to go back to your hometown just to go home. You're going to play in the Final Four. And when you have that mindset, it can take you a really long way. And they're going to be playing Illinois on Saturday, and that should be a great, great matchup. And when I was a junior in high school and they won the national championship in 2023, every game in March Madness, UConn just went on. They just dominated everybody. They were so hard to compete with. They dominated every phase of the game, and I think they just went into the mindset: we want to play one more game, and we want to be the last team standing, and we're just not going to give up. And when that happens, that you can go a long way. Do you agree, Luca?
Yes, I do certainly agree. Like, yeah, when you have a mindset like that, and like tough resilience, not giving up, and all that stuff, yeah, you definitely can go a long way for sure.
And when I was a junior in high school, I didn't expect UConn to win the national championship. And then when I was a senior in high school, I kind of expected them to go far in the tournament, but then they dominated everybody again the second year in a row. So Dan Hurley has really learned a lot from his father and his brother about the game of basketball, and he really has changed to the culture at UConn, and it would not surprise me if they win the championship because they just beat Duke and they're just going on this incredible run. Like if you were to tell me that the UConn team in 2023 and 2024 were going to win the championship before the tournament started, I wouldn't be surprised. This season, if you were to tell me they were going to go to the Final Four, I wouldn't be super surprised, but I would be a little bit surprised. And that just goes to show how much of a great coach Dan Hurley is. And his reaction when the kid hit the buzzer beater on Sunday was legendary. And that reaction will be known forever. And good luck to UConn on Saturday. Now, I reflect a lot about sports, and I reflect a lot about like players, NFL players or sports players I look up to. Luca, who's a professional sports player that you look up to? And it could be a player that has retired, or it can be someone who's playing right now, and it could be any sport.
Yeah, I would say a professional player I look up to. I'd have to say Aaron Judge, because he's just like he's a great all around player. Amazing player. One of the I would say probably arguably the greatest player in baseball right now. But not even just that. Like he's just like he's very passionate, and he cares about the fans, and he cares about his team, and he has great relationships with his teammates and wants his team to do well. And he just yeah, I mean he's just a great all around player. And I mean, what is there not to like about him?
Is there anybody else you can think of?
I would say, I mean, you could probably throw Derek Jeter in there too. I mean, he's was another amazing player. Won 5 World Series championships with the Yankees, mainly in the '90s. And yeah, no, just a very like humble, cool guy, and great personality. Same kind of thing. Great relationships with his teammates, and just wants his always wanted the best for his team.
Now, Derek Jeter's number from the Yankees is retired, right?
Yeah, yes, he's number 2, and his number is retired.
Now, was the Yankees the only team Derek Jeter played for in his career?
Yes, that is correct. He spent his entire career with the Yankees from 1995 to 2014.
That's a long career. What's the average span if like a player like Jeter, if you're like a great player like Jeter, how long does a baseball player play in the league for?
Um, I mean, usually they play for like as long as they can. There's no like specific time frame. It's kind of up to the player, and like when they kind of feel like it's time to retire and stuff like that. There's still players playing now that are like in their 40s and stuff. So yeah, I would say it can kind of be up to the player.
Now, when Aaron Judge retires, do you think his number from the Yankees is going to be retired?
Yes, I do think that there's a very good chance his number could be retired without a doubt.
And is the team that Judge has played on his entire career is the Yankees? Has he ever played on any other teams?
Nope. The only team he has played for is the Yankees.
They sound like great players. Now, a player that I look up to as a football player, and I still do to this day, is Peyton Manning. And I remember watching him when I was in like first grade, second grade, third grade, and fourth grade when he won the Super Bowl. And the reason why I look up to him, it's not just that he won 2 Super Bowls and he won the MVP in the league 5 times, and like he's an all-time passing leader. He's the best regular season quarterback, and he set all these records. He's a very, very down-to-earth, humble man in real life. And he's a gentleman in real life, and you never hear anything bad about him. And he would look like the type of guy you would want to hang out with. He's a role model. His father, Archie Manning, played in the NFL for 14 seasons. He played with the Saints, he played with the Vikings, and he played for the Oilers. And for 14 seasons, he did not have a winning season. And Luca, correct me if I'm wrong, 14 seasons in the NFL for a quarterback is a pretty long career.
Yes, you're correct. That is a fairly long career.
And not having a winning season for 14 years is something that's very rough. But you would never know it with Archie Manning, because Archie Manning was a very humble, very resilient, very hardworking, tough player. And after all those losses week after week when he played in the league, he also had his sons, he had his family, and he would obviously he would be upset when he would lose a game, but when he would go home after the game, you would have no idea that he would that he had lost a game after all those weeks. He was a completely different person. And uh Archie Manning wanted his kids to grow up to be responsible and to be gentlemen. And he always told his kids, when you play football or play a sport, don't ever don't ever over celebrate and don't ever have an ego. And when you make a big play, yes, you can shake your teammate's hand, but don't over celebrate. And Peyton and Eli and Cooper, Peyton's older brother, always listened to what Archie said. And growing up, Peyton, like a lot of famous athletes, they want to be like members of their family or somebody that they look up to. And a lot of people are like, I want to be like that person. But Peyton Manning, when he was growing up, he wanted to be Archie. He wanted to be his father. And Peyton learned everything about being a quarterback from his father. And Archie Manning taught his three sons to care for other people, to put other people before you, to be resilient, be appreciative of what you have in life, and to do whatever you can to help other people. And Peyton Manning just turned 50. I think last week he turned 50, and Eli Manning's about 45, and Cooper Manning turned, I believe, 52 earlier this month. And Archie Manning should write a book about how to raise children, because Archie Manning raised three gentlemen. You never hear anything bad about those guys. They help and find ways to help others. They're humble, and they really are down to earth people, and they really look like people you would want to hang out with and be around. Do you agree, Luca?
Yes, I do certainly agree with you. They all seem like great people, great personalities. And as you said, very like cool, calm, collected, humble, and yeah, just great all around people.
And I remember watching Peyton playing in the NFL, and he made a lot of great plays in his career. And I can't ever remember a time that he that he was overexcited, and that he was got and like he made like a huge like he like over exaggerated his excitement on the field. He always stayed collected, and I kind of take that philosophy in my life. Like I try not to get overexcited, and I try not to over celebrate, and I think of Peyton. And when Peyton Manning won his second Super Bowl in the 2015 season in February of 2016, when they beat the Panthers 24-10, when he won his final game, even when he won his final game, and probably by that point, when he played in his final game, he was probably saying to himself, this is it. And it was a great way to go out. When he held up the Lombardi trophy, he didn't over celebrate. He lifted it up with pride, and it was a class act. And Jim Nantz asked Peyton Manning on the podium when he won his second Super Bowl, a lot of people are asking you, and there's been a lot of word going around that there's a chance that this might be your final game. Is this your final game? And Peyton's like, I'm going to have a lot of time to reflect on these things. I have a lot of priorities first. I want to be with my family right now. And I learned a lot from my coach, Tony Dungy, with the Colts. He said, don't make an emotional decision too quickly. So I'm going to reflect, and I'm going to just go from there. And I'm going to celebrate with my teammates tonight. We're going to enjoy the parade, and then I'll think about the other stuff when it's time. And I feel like he couldn't have said it any better. And both Peyton Manning and Eli Manning did a tremendous job at their retirement speeches. And I've never met someone who was more passionate about the game of football than Peyton Manning. He loved, and he still does, but when he played in the NFL and in college and growing up, he loved the game of football. He loved it. That was part of who he was. He loved it. And when you find someone who is passionate about something like that, it is incredible. And in his retirement speech, he said, "My kids are young right now, but as they grow up, I'm going to tell them to really appreciate and value the little things in life because down the road, the little things are going to become the big things." Luca, do you think that's a great quote, a great saying by Peyton?
Um, yes, I do. I do think that is a great saying. Because you know it's basically saying that even though something might seem as though it's little at the time, eventually someday it's going to become big, and it's gonna become a bigger deal than what it currently is.
And Peyton also said that I'm totally convinced that the end of my football career is the beginning of something great. And that was basically an example of him saying, I might be done playing football, but this is an opportunity for me to do something else great with my life. And he just is a great mentor. And I just think of him when he lost in the Super Bowl, and he probably still thinks about it to this day in Super Bowl 48 when Peyton and the Broncos lost against the Seahawks. He he was in his 16th season at the time, and he was like 38, and his career was kind of winding down, and he could have retired after that game, but he never gave up. Giving up was never an option for Peyton. And again, his older brother Cooper said Peyton would be so nervous. He would not nervous, but he would be so concerned about not being prepared that he would over prepare. And Peyton said in his retirement speech, and this was probably the best thing he said in the speech, I know looking back on my football career for the past 18 years in the NFL that I did everything to help my team win. There might have been players that were more talented, but nobody could out prepare me. And because of that, I have no regrets. And Peyton said, I have fought the good fight. I have finished my football race. And he said, I want to, football fans, I want to tell them how much they've meant to me over the years. Like that's just an example of a person and a player who went through the wall for their team. And it's a player of how he's not just looking at football, he's looking about the important things in life that make someone successful. Do you agree with that, Luca?
Yes, I do 100% agree. That it's great that he's not just he never just concerned himself with football. Like, he concerned about his team, and being successful, and like, yeah, no, that's definitely great for sure that he did that.
And he could have retired after his loss in the Super Bowl against the Seahawks, but he never gave up. He found a way to win. He found a way to build his team to be a championship team. And then 2 years later, he came out on top. And I said to myself, when he lost in the Super Bowl against the Seahawks, I said to myself, he's going to be back. And the next time he's going to be in it, he's going to win it. And he never gave up, and he just kept fighting to the end. Now, Luca, is there a movie character that you have a connection with?
Yeah, I would say a movie character that I have a connection with is Rocky.
Why Rocky? He's a great character. Why Rocky?
Well, I would say one of the big reasons was just all the for all of his fights, just how much tough and resilience, and how much grit he had, and that he never gave up, and he always stayed in there, and also that he always he had so much heart too, and yeah, so definitely those things is where I would say I feel a connection to him.
When you think of the Rocky fights, all the fights that Rocky had, what's the one that you think about the most?
Um, well, I would say I kind of think about all of them in a sense.
I agree.
I mean, both obviously the first two fights where he fought Apollo, those were both great. The two fights with Clubber Lang were great. And I mean, and the Drago fight was great too. So yeah, I mean, they were all great in their own way.
Now, here's a question. In Rocky 3, when Rocky fought Clubber Lang the first time, did Rocky win?
No, he did not.
But did he win the second fight?
Yes, he did.
And who trained him when he fought Clubber Lang the second time for the rematch?
Was it was it Mickey, or did he die already?
So in Rocky 3, right before the first fight against Mr. T, Clubber Lang, Mickey had a heart attack and passed away. And then right after the fight, um, Apollo Creed wanted to come out and help Rocky. And that is actually a movie scene that I can connect with. And that's actually a movie scene that motivates me. Rocky, after Mickey passed, he was feeling down about himself. So he went to back to Mickey's old gym, and Apollo said, Rocky asked Apollo, "What are you doing here?" And Apollo Creed said to Rocky, "Business." And then Rocky's like, "If the papers knew you were talking like this, they think you were crazy. Why you?" And Apollo's like, "Because I'm the best, and you need somebody to teach you different." And Rocky's like, "Why?" And Apollo's like, "Well, to be honest with you, I don't think you can pull it off without me, Rock." And then Rocky's like, "You still didn't give me the answer, Apollo. Now, what's the real reason?" And Rocky said, "I don't need this no more. I don't want this no more." Apollo said, "Look, man, when you beat me, I heard all over, and I didn't want to hear on nothing on nobody, not even my kids. Every fighter knows that hurt, and we get sick inside trying to live with it. So don't back down now. Make it right for yourself, or you're going to be sorry you didn't. We held the greatest title in the whole world, man. You lost that fight, Rock, for all the wrong reasons. You lost your edge." And he said, "Now, when we fought, you had the eye of the tiger, man, the edge. And now you got to get it back. And the way to get it back is to go back to the beginning. You know what I mean? Maybe we could win it back together. Eye of the tiger." And Rocky's like, "Why'd you have to come here?" Apollo said, "I have the plan. Get back." That scene really motivates me and it inspires me because Rocky lost a big part of his life. Mickey was a father figure to him, and Mickey was the one who was always by his side through everything, through all of his fights and throughout his life. And when Mickey passed away, I felt like part of Rocky was lost, and Rocky really was really down, and he was very upset about the whole thing. And Rocky probably wanted to. Part of him wanted to give up, but part of him wanted to go back again. And Apollo wanted to see him succeed. And Apollo's character, like in Rocky 1 and Rocky 2, all Apollo wanted to do was beat Rocky in the ring. But then in Rocky 3, Apollo's character changed. And I like that. I liked in Rocky 3 a lot when Apollo comes out and trains Rocky. And wanted Apollo wanted Rocky to succeed. And he basically told Rocky, "Don't give up. You and I held the greatest title in the whole world. You had the eye of the tiger, and you never gave up. And we're not going to give up. And I'm going to take it back, and we're going to have the rematch." Like that, basically, it instilled spirit into Rocky, and Apollo motivated him and wanted him to work harder. And I love the scene in Rocky 3 when they first walk into Apollo's gym and Apollo's like, "You see that look in their eyes, Rock? When we fought, I fought hard, but I didn't have that look in your eye. You had it. You had it all too well. We got to get that look back, Rock. Eye the tiger. Eye the tiger. Come on." What do you think of that in Rocky 3, Luca?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I do think it really is great that, that Apollo actually, like, decided to like help Rocky out and train him, and that, Apollo kind of changed in that sense rather than just continuing to just want to, just like beat up Rocky and fight against him. So I think, it was great, for the two of them to be like working together.
And the reason why I have a connection with Rocky is because at the beginning of Rocky 1, Rocky kind of had nobody and he was all by himself. But then he had a chance to make a name for himself and he took that chance and he worked extremely hard for it. And he went up against the greatest fighter in the world, Apollo Creed, and he went the distance and he overcame the odds and he proved to everybody that he was able to do something for himself. And I feel like a lot of people doubted him. And the reason why I have a connection with him is because like people doubted him, but he didn't care what other people thought. And people said sometimes people said harsh words to Rocky, and but he didn't care what other people thought, and um he just kept going, and he never gave up. Now I had a great time talking with you today, Luca, and I'm looking forward to more excellent adventures. Thank you.